I've already made videos for you on how to set your papers up in MLA format. I've also made a video on how to set up your works cited page using MLA format. So what I want to cover now is a little more specific and perhaps a little more difficult because it has to do with your writing. So what I want to cover in this video is how to integrate quotes as well as how to use in-text citations within your papers. This is something you're going to need to do right off the bat with lesson 1. You're going to need to use quotations and things like that in your T analysis. So I want to give you a head start on how to cite, but as well I want to help you in how to introduce quotations, things like that. So what I'm looking at right now is the online writing lab from Purdue University's MLA PowerPoint. You can find this by going to the link that's provided in our online classroom, but I will also provide it on the notes from me in this lessons folder. Sorry, losing my train of thought. So I don't want you to feel overwhelmed as we go through this. This is a ton of information. Pretty much what the OWL has done is compile all of their the basic important MLA information that they have online into a PowerPoint slideshow. So I'm showing it to you in this format because it's a little easier for me, but it might seem a little more intimidating for you. So when you go to the website, you can look specifically at integrating quotes or in-text citation, whereas this PowerPoint compiles it all for you. So I recommend using both. Take a look at this PowerPoint, at your leisure at some time. When you have a moment to look at it. Again, I've provided the link below this video so that you can find it. All right, so what we're really going to focus on, again, this has all sorts of information about how to set up your paper, in general. But what we're going to work on is in-text citations. So in-text citations, they're also called parenthetical citations or parenthetical documentation, and that's because it's going to be in parentheses, which you'll see in just a second. So these in-text citations, because they're happening within the body of your paper as opposed to footnotes or something, they're in your writing. They refer back to your works cited page. So that's how your readers can go, oh, I love this quote from this critic. Who is this critic? Okay, I'm going to go to the works cited page. Ooh, that's how I can find it. So that's how all of this information is working together to help your reader, as well as for you to give credit to those folks who you're drawing from. So let's take a look here. So here's what the in-text citation looks like. You can see that it's in parentheses. This is simply a page number. But you can see how it's in your writing. So this is what the sentence says. Wordsworth, a romantic poet, stated that romantic poetry was marked by a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. So this is the direct quote taken from William Wordsworth. Here's the page number on which you can find it. And then, of course, this corresponds to this information found in the works cited page. So in your paper, these two aren't connected. This is on a separate piece of paper. At the end of your paper, I've already showed you what a works cited page is, but I just want to make sure you're not confused based on how it's laid out here. So one thing that you can see here, there are 3 different types. There's just a page number with a direct quote. There's a last name and a page number with a direct quote. And then there's no direct quote, but still a reference. So let's go through each of these. This one, the very first one that we see, is just a page number because the last name was already stated. So this means that your reader can look at that and go, oh, Wordsworth. Well, let me look for it in the works cited page. Oh, bam, there's Wordsworth. Okay, so because the last name was mentioned in the same sentence as the direct quote, you don't need the last name in this page number. Now, if you can't remember that, I don't care. That's totally fine. I'd rather you give more information than too little. So in that case, this is always the default. Use the last name with the page number, and you're covered. So romantic poetry is characterized by the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. Because Wordsworth's name is taken out of the sentence, it's now in the in-text citation. Because remember, the point of in-text citation is to direct your reader to your works cited page. If your reader can't find this entry in your Works Cited page, they're going to be lost. So if you took out his last name and just had the page number, your reader wouldn't know where to find that. Okay, and same here. If you took his last name out of the in-text citation, your reader wouldn't know where to go. So you have to have their last name somewhere. Okay, so in this last example, it says Wordsworth extensively explored the role of emotion in the creative process. There is no direct quote, but there is a specific reference. The writer is summarizing exactly what Wordsworth thinks. So if the person wanted to find that exact thought, you still need to provide that reference. So anytime you have a direct quote, you need an in-text citation. Anytime you have a specific reference to somebody else's work, you have to have a citation. If the last name is within the sentence, you don't need it in the citation, but if it's not, you do. How you doing with that? I know it's a lot. I know it's a lot of information, but you'll get the hang of it, I promise. And remember, this is always the default. If I see that the last name is in the sentence and in your citation, I might make a note of it, but it's certainly not going to be deducted from your grade or something like that. Remember, too much is better. This is the exact same thing. Human beings have been described by Kenneth Burke. There's your name of the person with the idea as simple using animals. So it's not in the citation, but then human beings have been described as simple using animals. There's the last name and the page number. Here would be the corresponding Works Cited entry. There's that last name. Okay. Let's see what else. So if the author is unknown, you have to work with a title. Because you're working with literature and because you're working with theory and criticism, you're almost always going to have a last name. But say, for example, you're working with a poem that is anonymous and has no author, then in that case, you're going to use the title, maybe even a condensed version of the title. So here we have the impact of global warming in North America. There's obviously no author to that. And when you do your in-text citation, you want to make the title as short as you can while still making it clear what reference you're using. Okay, so impact of global warming, impact of global warming. Okay, so that's how you can trim it down and still make sense. We do the same thing with the publisher. As I mentioned in the Works Cited video, a publisher can have a longer name, but you cut it down to just what you need. All right, so there are going to be different examples of other types of in-text citations, but again, because you're using literature, which is, pretty foundational, you're not going to have to deal too much with weird types of formatting. But again, always take a look and see what information is there. All right, so when it comes to formatting short quotations, you always 100% have to introduce each quote. And by introducing, I mean you have to have some of your own writing come before it. So here's the direct quote, as you can see, but here's how this author is introducing it. According to some, dreams express profound aspects of personality. You don't ever want to start with just the quote. Now, this seems kind of contradictory. When you read in the Engl, and you're reading general conference addresses, you will see the general authorities using scriptures as their sources, of course, but they will be standing free and alone. In that case, it's fine. It does kind of drive me crazy because this is how you write properly. So it's nothing against the doctrine they're teaching, but technically they need to be introducing those if they were writing in an academic course. So don't get confused and say, well, the general authorities do it. I see it in the Engl all the time. People do it at church. Well, that's fine. It's a completely different audience. So when you're here and you're writing an essay for this course, you have to introduce your quotes. Do not leave them standing alone. Okay, and here, most of the time your citations are going to come at the end of the sentence, but because this quote came at the beginning of the sentence, the in-text citation comes here only because there's a break through the use of this little comma right there. Otherwise, they just go at the end. Okay, let's see here. Make sure to hopefully you're noticing a pattern. The punctuation always, always, always follows the citation. The citation is part of your sentence. And when your period or your question mark ends the sentence, the citation needs to be within that punctuation because it's a part of your sentence. So please don't put, for example, a period right there. That would not work. This is incorrect. Okay, and I will 100% point that out in your papers. Your punctuation goes after the citation. Let's see here. With long quotations, you need to indent them. They don't use quotation marks. And this is the one case that you would put the punctuation after the quote. Okay? So in short quotations, punctuation always goes after the in-text citation. In long quotations, it doesn't. Here's my note for this. I don't want long quotations in your papers. Your papers aren't particularly long. And to me, when you use a long quotation that you could very easily summarize, you're just eating up your paper with somebody else's words, and I don't want that. I want to see what you have to say. I want to see your analysis skills, and using long quotations to me distracts from that. So please don't use them in this course. And if you do, I'll make a note of it and say, okay, let's not do that. Use short quotations, use a summary. You can always cut things down by omitting some words if you need to, but please don't use long quotations. Then lastly, adding or omitting words. If you want to add something, say your quote starts with a pronoun, you can put in quotations brackets. You can put in brackets exactly who that pronoun is referring to. So when you want to add information, you do it by those brackets, and those brackets tell your reader, oh, this is from me, this is not in the original text. When you want to omit something, you use an ellipses, which is 3 periods in a row. So this is, again, another way you can avoid long quotations besides summarizing. You just use 3 periods, and it shows that there's information that's missing. When it comes to long versus short quotations, if your short quotation goes over 4 lines, then it needs to be a long quotation. So that's what I'm going to tell you. Keep your quotes less at 4 lines or less. Okay, and then we don't have any issues with the long quotations. All right. Well, I know that's a lot of information on how to do in-text citations and quotations, but again, this slideshow is really good. And I started on slide 13 for the in-text stuff. So just to go over some key elements, make sure you introduce every single quote into your writing. It has to be grammatical. Your sentence has to fit the grammar of the quote, and there are ways that's how you can use brackets and change things up so that it fits into your sentences, but it has to be seamless. You have to work those quotes in effectively into your writing. Also, make sure your punctuation comes where it's supposed to. For short quotes, which is really all you should be working with, the punctuation always follows the in-text citation. Also, I guess that's this note down here. Also, make sure you watch your punctuation as you're introducing your quotes. If you say that Wordsworth says, you need a comma. If you say Wordsworth states that, you don't need a comma. And the first word of the quote doesn't need to be capitalized. See, there are so many different things. We're gonna play with it. We're gonna get a feel for it. But again, when I give you feedback on this information, make sure you use it to help you. See, my feedback. So make sure you use it to improve in these areas, because I know it's really, picky and specific, but it's also consistent. So you'll get the hang of it, I promise. So watch your punctuation before. Make sure you watch the punctuation after. Use your citations for every quote or specific reference. That covers you for plagiarism issues. And as I've said before, make sure you use more info if you're unsure about something. So the major don'ts: do not leave a quote standing alone as a sentence. You need to introduce it in some way. And make sure you don't forget any citations for your quotes or references, because again, it's a plagiarism issue. I need to make sure that you're giving credit where credit is due. So if you have any questions, let me know. Take some time with that OWL website. Take a look at the slideshow